Hi guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're watching this video from. As a Nigerian, after watching this particular video I'm about to bring now, just a small clip before I will bring the full video, you will know the reason why it is very hard. It seems so hard that it's not possible to unseat or to remove a sitting president. Whether that president was the person that passed the election or not, is as far as INEC has declared him winner and he has been sworn in into the office. The constitution and the electoral act we are using make it so difficult for him to be removed from that office. And if you are an obedient, this video will even make you lose interest in pursuing waiting to be the pursue in court right now. Just watch this video. I'm coming back to say what I want to say. Let's go.
Obasanjo, the late Justice Pats Asholonu made the point in the Supreme Court that under our electoral system, to successfully challenge a presidential election, you will need about 250,000 to 300,000 witnesses. And there can be no time for that. Now, we have only 21 days to do that. Now,
I think you don't see what in this man talk. You hear everything with your ear. This man na a SAN. This man na SAN, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Falana. He said, as you heard, that in the electoral act where we get, that before you can unseat, because you can bring more evidence that will make you to unseat a president on seat, you will bring about 250 witnesses. And remember, in the constitution we have only 180 days for the tribunal. I think 60 days for the Supreme Court. Then which candidates will be able to bring 250 witnesses to defend his case in court to remove a sitting president? This is the reason why so many people are calling for a reform, a change in our constitution and our electoral act. Let me tell you the gospel truth. The people that made our constitutions and electoral act no get the interest of Nigerians at heart before making that constitution. Before bringing those electoral acts, they have their own interests at heart. They make those laws and those electoral acts to favor the people at the top. This is the reason you can never unseat a sitting president. And I don't know how this will be possible this time around. Our prayer, we are still hoping to know if this thing will work. But let's sit and watch the full clip from this man where he reviewed so many things. And he said that the people at the political class will not allow democracy to thrive in Nigeria because they know what they are gaining in the present situation right now. The people that made the constitution, they don't really want Nigeria to move forward. They want Nigeria to stay one place. That's why what we are witnessing today in Nigeria is happening. As I'm watching the video, try to share it, let it go viral. Let people know the real thing. The problem we get for our Niger, na constitution and the laws we are using. Thank you very much. I remember my humble self, the Eichmann. Let's go.
Nigeria, Femi Falana. And Mr. Falana joins me now in the studio. You look a little bored there.
I'm very frustrated, you know.
Because you keep hearing these people talking about you all the time, and you're like, oh crikey, not me again.
Yeah, but we'll get to address the problems, you know.
But elections, and great to have you here, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Elections in Nigeria, how could we move forward? What is your assessment of all the electoral jurisprudence, and should we go back to, to reform our electoral laws?
Charles, we have the largest number of election cases in the world, the largest number of election petitions, and the largest number of pre-election cases, because the members of the political class are not prepared to allow democracy to thrive in Nigeria. So what they do is to try and rig and out-trick themselves. And at the end of the day, the problems are then thrown at the courts and election petition tribunals. You need to appreciate that we are facing. Right now, majority of cases in our court, many of our courts, are simply suspended. to allow for time-bound election disputes to be resolved. We can't go on like this. We just cannot go on like this. And what is the solution? Again, once the ongoing election petitions are concluded, we must, in the interest of the country, go back to the drawing table. And the solutions are around the corner. But successive regimes, since about 2007, have refused to adopt the solutions that have been preferred. One, the first one, is on the independence of the management election bodies. The INEC and the State Independent Electoral Commission, which, by the way, the State Independent Electoral Commission conduct whereby all the candidates of the ruling party must win. Two, some of those who are accusing INEC of rigging elections perform worse in the conduct of primaries of their political parties. Now, the first one is we must have an electoral body, and we're all going to respect that is independent and well-funded. One, the Ways Electoral Reform Panel recognized that when the sitting president appoints electoral chiefs, there are problems. Therefore, we're going to appoint electoral chiefs, INEC chairman, the commissioners, national commissioners, and the RECs, resident electoral commissioners, by advertisement.
But that's been talked about before. I remember you talking about it in 2019.
Yeah, but these guys are not ready.
Right.
Now, once that is done, the National Judicial Council will shortlist and send the names of the best three for each of the positions to the Senate. The Senate that will screen them, not take a bow, re-screening to know if they are competent. Right. Secondly, all election petitions, all disputes shall be concluded before the inauguration of the incoming government, so that nobody will be accused of using the position of the executive incumbency powers while your election is still being disputed.
But do you trust the judiciary to be able to really deal with those cases in that short space of time?
Well, we have 6 months.
Yeah, because you see, I see what you mean. Yeah, since, from the conclusion of the election
let me just finish.
Right.
Yeah. The third one is that the onus of proof, the onus of proving that a credible election has been conducted shall be on the INEC. Because you have told the whole world, you have conducted the best election, you come to court and prove same. Because to impose the onus on the petitioners is very difficult. To get the election materials, a Herculean task. But INEC has all the materials. You come to court and prove that the election that we have spent huge sums of money on has been well conducted. So these are the major recommendations.
But what is the state of the law at the moment? Can someone, because you, for example, in the past, you've had the reputation of taking different institutions of government to court.
Yes.
I mean, can someone take INEC to court and say, come and prove just what you said, that you conducted a free and fair election?
Under the current Electoral Act.
Right.
The onus is on the petitioner. But the Ways panel recommended that the onus be shifted to INEC. I mean, for instance...
But can you do it as a civil case and
no,
say, right...
because the law is there.
Right.
And this is what the law has provided for. Yeah, and so that is why the commission, the panel recommended that we need to amend the Electoral Act. And since then, we've had the Electoral Act 2010, Electoral Act 2022. And these guys simply brush aside this fundamental, amendment, recommendations, because in 2011, in the announcement of the result of the election, you know, there were protests in about 12 states in the north and in Akwa Ibom state. And on that basis, President Jonathan set up the Ahmed Lemu Committee. They make recommendations. Again, the panel came to the conclusion that for us to, we need to go back to waste panel. President Buhari, who was elected in 2015 and celebrated the introduction of technology, also set up a panel headed by Senator Ken Namani to review our electoral laws. Again, that body recommended that we need to go back to waste panel. So there is a general understanding that we need, incidentally, as the national leader of the APC, I think, yes? No, ACN, then APC. Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, the current president, set up a committee, CODA, Committee to Promote Electoral Reforms. And that body also campaigned for the implementation of the recommendations of waste panel. So there's a general agreement that we need to reform the electoral law instead of blaming judges. The current electoral act and the jurisprudence promote injustice. For instance, you know, in the Electoral Act, paragraph 51 of the fourth schedule told the electoral provides that no electoral officer can go to court or the tribunal to give evidence against the election that has been conducted, even if he or she is convinced that the election has been manipulated, unless he obtains the fiat of the Attorney General. The Attorney General, either at the federal level or the state level, is likely to have been appointed by the president or the governor, whose election is being disputed. So, and the other point that was made, that the era of that characterizes our elections has to stop. And so the panel again, the waste panel recommended the establishment of an electoral offenses tribunal. We pursued that matter 2 years ago, or last year. We convinced the Senate to pass the bill for the establishment of an electoral offenses tribunal before, during, and after the elections. Again, the House of Reps did not pass the bill. Hence, we are back to square one. So again, this is an opportunity now for us to look at the aspect of the waste panel's recommendations that have not been implemented. So in that, so that we can put an end to this.
That's a very good point. Yeah. But in that context, should those electoral reforms be spearheaded by President Tinubu himself? Is that the way to restore confidence?
No, as I said, President Yaradua in 2007 admitted publicly that my election was. Therefore, I'm going to ensure that we do not have a repeat. I mean, that was General Obasanjo's election. And before that, 2003, Buhari and Obasanjo, the late Justice Pats Asholonu made the point in the Supreme Court that under our electoral system, to successfully challenge a presidential election, you will need about 250,000 to 300,000 witnesses. And there can be no time for that. Now, we have only 21 days to do that. Now, what then happened after that? The panel made profound recommendations. Even the Yaradua regime did not quite accept.
So clearly, this is all much more political than legal,
of course.
Really.
Now, as I said, President Jonathan set up a panel, President Buhari set up a panel. Now, President Tinubu will have to lead the campaign. Now, it's very, very, very important. And that is the only way for us to get out of this. It's unimaginable. The enormous cost to the society, the damage done to the reputation of our courts. It has to be, we have to look at all these implications and then insist that just like Kenya in 2017, I compared the electoral process in Kenya and Nigeria following the annulment of the presidential election in that country. And I came to the irresistible conclusion that we cannot continue like this. Happily, those who have just lost elections now are now asking for the Kenyan model. So we have to, just like Kenya decided, we cannot continue like this. Nigeria has also got to that stage. Because we are 300 billion naira for the election.
But does it really matter how much you rewrite or reform the Electoral Act? I mean, because in the final analysis, some would argue that it's just a piece of paper unless the law is applied and enforced. So shouldn't the focus be on reforming the institutions?
No, you're going to reform the institutions by reforming the law. For instance,
yeah, but they've reformed the law, but the institutions haven't moved on, have they?
Reform the law.
I mean, the Electoral Act, 2022 Electoral Act was supposed to be a reform.
For instance, I can tell you.
Right.
In the 2010 Electoral Act, Section 34, gave every citizen the local standard to challenge the information provided by any candidate. So, but these guys removed that section and then amended the constitution to declare that only members of a political party can challenge the nomination, the disqualification, or the sponsorship of a candidate. Now, instead of looking at the law, we're blaming judges for interpreting the law as it is and not as it ought to be. So that is why the law is so fundamental. Once we have reformed the law, and we set in place the Electoral Offences Tribunal, then we can make the institutions, individuals who also commit electoral offenses right now. And this was again another recommendation that INEC has to be unbundled. INEC currently will have to register political parties, will have to register voters, will have to conduct elections, will have to monitor the political parties, will have to examine their finances and so on and so forth. Hence, the Uwais panel recommended that INEC be unbundled. Right now, it is even INEC that is asked by the I think Section 145 for the current Electoral Act to prosecute electoral offenders. INEC does not have the means to do that. Hence, the Nigerian Bar Association is trying to work with INEC on a voluntary basis to prosecute some electoral offenders. But that shouldn't be so. The Uwais panel discovered that we're dealing with gross impunity and therefore recommended that there should be a body. If we want to get our Electoral Act respected by all and sundry, we need a body to arrest violators of the Electoral Act and then have them prosecuted so that some lessons will be learned. But right now, all those who were arrested the last time, including somebody I think in Rivers, who was caught with about $500,000, the case filed against him has been withdrawn by the Rivers State government. And that is the whole purpose of saying, let us have an independent body. Once you don't punish, once you don't sanction criminal elements in the society, there's no way the institutions will work. I mean, look at what is going on in the US.
It sounds like
President Trump is facing a standing trial in 4 different courts. It's impossible here. The big men and women here are above the law, And so we must go back to the society that
But that
we used
speaks to institutional reform,
Of
doesn't
course,
it? Yeah.
of course. And like I said, you must reform the law and reform the institutions. But what is important is to punish offenders.
But you see, all these things you've said, and you have consistently said over the years. I mean, your position has not wavered.
No, not at all.
Clearly, it sounds like it's the best way to advance the course of democracy in Nigeria. And every time you recommend going back to the drawing board. But how do you push that point to the relevant
Well, no, what we're doing
institutions
now, what
like
we're
the
doing
National
now,
Assembly?
at the level of the civil society, we have Alliance on Surviving COVID-19 and beyond. We have other organizations that are being mobilized to insist on major reforms of the electoral laws. And unless we do that, and the campaign is starting soon. The campaign is starting soon. And some of us are going to invest in that campaign in the interest of all of us. I mean, you have young people who were voting for the first time and they felt so disappointed. And we can't go on like that. We cannot go on like that.
Absolutely.
Because once people are frustrated,